This is the meeting of the Lessard-Sams Outdoor Heritage Council, December 10th. It's 8:30. I call the meeting to order. First thing we do is call the roll.
Hartwell.
I'm here.
Hartwell present. Shara. Baird.
Present.
Baird present. Representative Burkle.
Burkle present.
Burkle present. Edmondson.
Present.
Edmondson present. Eggerling.
Here.
Eggerling present. Senator Hurt. Holston.
Here.
Holston present. Senator Lang.
Here.
Senator Lang present. Representative Lilly. Saxhog.
Here.
Saxhog present. Swenson.
Here.
Swenson present.
So we have a quorum and we have 9 votes, which is what we need today. This should be a fairly short meeting. The first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to add a discussion on the Roseau River project and revisit that. I've had a request to do that. And you all got an email from Mark on that yesterday. So with your consent, we'll add that perhaps right after the information. No, we'll add it right after the executive director's report. If I can get a motion.
Mr. Chair, with that addition, I'll move the agenda.
Good enough. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I'd take a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Great, we have a motion. Any discussion, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Any conflicts of interest to report? All right, my comments, we got a budget forecast, which you'll hear about. We did get a little more money. It's interesting. The actual sales tax receipts went down, or the estimate for that, but the carry forward went up significantly and there was more investment income. And you've got a memo that we'll talk about on basically what we had already decided. But we need 9 votes to actually put it into the bill language and pass it on to the legislature. And other than that, I don't have anything to report other than there's a meeting this afternoon, which we're trying to switch to the morning with the Clean Water Fund. We had mentioned just a informational meeting with the 2 groups and nobody indicated an interest in coming, but there is room if you want to. And that's my full comments. I'll turn it over to Mark, unless there are any questions for me.
And Mr. Chair, I have no items on my report this morning, so
Well,
to you.
All right. So Roseau River, there was a couple of questions that came up. You'll remember at the last meeting there, the motion to give them an extension did not get the necessary 9 votes. Staff went back and said to them, you know, sort of, where are you at? And they came back with an answer to that. And Mark, you had the conversation, so I'll turn this over to you and you can give a brief report and we can decide if we want to revisit our decision.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the information we found out from Tracy Halsonsgaard, their program manager up at the Watershed District, was that they plan on moving forward with the restorations for what they can until the expiration of funds, which is June 30th, I think, of this next year. And originally they'd planned for 3 for restoring the meander of 3 different oxbows on the river, on the Roseau River. And the problem with that is after waiting for all of, as we understand and as the memo pretty much says, after waiting for all the permitting and everything, now is the time they can finally go in after the ground is frozen, because that's another requirement of DNR to get the work done. By June 30th, there is virtually no way they'll get all three done. They do feel they will get the one, they can do one, which is the smallest one, and it would be about 25% of their anticipated outputs or anticipated acres that they would accomplish in miles of stream or feet of stream. The others, if they don't have an extension, what their plan is, of course, is probably to come back to the council at some time in the future for more funds for this. The other part of it is that just from I asked about an economy of scale from being able to do it all if they did have the extension. She said, well, the nice thing is then they can put out the RFP for one contractor to do all three, mobilize all the equipment at one time in that area and try to get after it all. Because evidently it's fairly remote, and mobilizing the equipment and the manpower is a part of the larger expense of this whole thing. But regardless, they will get work done. It's just how much they're going to be able to get done because of the time. And just in case there are questions for them, we do have them on the line. I think they're on the line this morning. Mr. Chair.
So I think the real, as I think back on our meeting, the issue is we were trying to send a message, get the frickin' work done and get it, don't sort of come to us with a project that's half baked and then work it out. Come to us with a project and be ready to get the work done. It's clear that it is now ready to do. I would hope our message has been received, and it may be time to give them a pass on this and let them actually do the work with the money that's already in the hopper. Give them a 1-year extension to get the work done. Mark, did you?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I had asked Mark and Joe to reach out and try to get some of that background information to find out exactly what's going on and what would be impacted or not impacted from this, and want to just make sure the council was fully aware. It's come to my attention that Representative Burkle has a meeting up in that area on Thursday with the community. I think looking at the time, we're not in a hurry to make an extension doesn't need to be done immediately. We're not at a flashpoint right now. From what I've come to understand is I think we just kind of let that meeting run its course. And take it back up at the next meeting in January.
Do you think we'll learn anything new?
I think that's incumbent upon Representative Burkle.
So Representative Burkle, do you have any comments? I see your hand up, but you're on mute.
The joys of technology, guys. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I think Mark makes a great point. I talked to him yesterday. I talked to Mark Johnson as well yesterday. I think the issue up here, for whatever reason, in Roseau County, we have the Roseau Lake project with all the, animosity around that project. But that was a unanimous decision by the watershed board there. And I think, what I'm hearing from folks around this project is that they still have concerns. And I know that Tracy, she could probably speak to this, but I know that Tracy has addressed this, and the board has, and they've done their due diligence to listening to folks. I've got this meeting scheduled Thursday, and I think our next meeting is January 3rd. I think there's no reason we couldn't hold this off a little bit longer till I talk to these folks myself and see where they're at, see what's going on. There's a little bit of frustration from my end. It just seems like landowners are always the last in the know, or seem to maybe put their head in the sand as these projects are being kind of phased in and explored. But I wish there was some way to be sure that landowners affected, it's like they're always the last, at least in Roseau County, that's the case. So anyway, I got a 10 o'clock meeting right in Badger on Thursday. And if we could just kind of delay the thing till then, I think it'd be prudent just to hear these folks out, or at least for my sake, to hear these folks out myself, and then bring it back in the third.
So, John, I guess I'd love to hear from Tracy as to whether or not it'll screw up the bidding to not be able to proceed now versus January, assuming we could get the 9 votes to grant the extension. I think that'd be an interesting piece to at least know at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
Hi, this is Tracy. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Chairman Hartwell, thank you for the opportunity to address this. We as the Watershed District were unaware of any meeting coming up this Thursday. That's the same day as our board meeting. However, we would be interested in having a representative at that meeting to discuss with landowners their concerns. And to Representative Burkle's point about, bringing awareness to our projects. I feel we have done our due diligence. We have spent the last 5 years, meeting with different landowners, working with landowners, and to be quite blunt, the folks that are most of the folks that are upset about the project are not within the project area. They're just upset about spending the money and basically the DNR and government in general. So a lot of it goes back to kind of that, decades long institutionalized frustration, I guess. So as far as the delay, potentially delaying bidding, our meeting, like I said, is this December meeting is this Thursday, which that is on the agenda to move forward with. So potentially, it could delay things by a month or so, just because the board would be directing our engineers to get the bid packet together, and what that includes will matter, right? So whether or not long-term that's, impactful, I would say there's a pretty strong potential that it is. However, if we don't have the votes today to move it forward, I would like it to be addressed on the 3rd as well.
So I guess the question is, if it gets delayed to the 3rd, would it take a 2-year extension instead of a 1-year extension?
That would be preferable, yes.
No, no.
Yes, it would.
If we gave you a 1-year extension today,
yes,
would the project get done?
I believe so.
If we gave you a 1-year extension in January, would the project get done?
I don't think the whole scope of the project would be able to be
That
completed.
was my concern. So John, it's your area. Are you comfortable going forward today, or do you want to wait? I'll let you have the.
I'll go back to Tracy's comment about due diligence, because I know they've done their due diligence. I'm hanging my hat on the fact that the watershed board vote was 3-2. It was a split decision, and one of the members was a new member. And I think the fact that it's contentious, but not a unanimous decision, is why I personally want to hear the folks out. I could vote yes on this today and grant the extension. I mean, we're talking about money that's already been appropriated, or theoretically appropriated, until we extend it here if we do. But the fact is, the 3-2 vote makes me a little hesitant. I really feel like, I thought so last meeting, I actually made the motion to extend, and it didn't pass with the 9 votes necessary. Not really understanding that this was a split vote on the watershed board side. And the folks out locally.
So I guess the question, John, that I'd ask you, since you made the original motion and you're closer to it than the rest of us,
Right?
if we, what I just heard Tracy say is if we give them an extension today for 1 year, they'd get it
Mhm.
done. If we give them an extension for 1 year in January, it probably would require 2 years, not 1. Do you want to make a motion to extend it a year now and see if we have the votes, or do you want to wait till January and be faced with 2 years of extension?
Tell you what. I'm gonna make a motion to table this till January 3rd.
Okay? So we will bring it up in January after your meeting. And I'm seeing some nods and knowing that you are going to not vote in favor and we wouldn't have the 9 votes, we will just move on.
Okay,
All right. Thank you, John.
thank you.
So, so Mr. Chair, the motion is to table till the 3rd.
Since there isn't a motion,
Yeah, you got, I mean, it's.
we're
a certain
tabling
time.
the discussion until the 3rd.
It's a certain time. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It will be on the January 3rd agenda. Next, we will move to item 6, review of the financial forecast or fiscal forecast. Please tell us why we have extra money. We're appreciative of extra money. I want to know why it jumped so much on the holdbacks.
Certainly.
Good. Good morning, Chair Hartwell and council members. For the record, my name is Ryan Mers, Executive Budget Officer with Minnesota Management and Budget. I'm joined today by Nick Lardnoy, Director of Policy and Budget over the Environment area at MMB. We are here to provide an update on the Outdoor Heritage Fund balance as published in the November 2024 forecast. MMB forecasts the fund will have approximately $168 million available to appropriate in fiscal year 2026, assuming a 5% end of the year reserve balance. On the handout we've provided, the table on the right includes the most recent MMB estimates for carry forwards, sales tax receipts, and investment income. 4 factors are important in understanding the approximately $8 million increase in the amount available to appropriate compared to end of session estimates. First, cancellations. Second, sales tax revenue decreases. Third, investment earning increases. And fourth, a decreased reserve amount. Much of these changes are represented in the unobligated carry forward from prior year line of the handout. It's that top part there. I'm now going to go into more detail on each of those items and what's moving with them. So to begin with cancellations. $5.826 million canceled in fiscal year 2024 as of the close of the year. For context, this is below the average cancellation amount in the prior 4 years of approximately $9 million a year. Furthermore, $2.128 million from prior fiscal years returned to the bottom line of the fund due to canceled encumbrances, deposit corrections, or other adjustments. This is captured as part of the FY24 prior period adjustment line in the fund balance. So in the actual fund balance under fiscal year 2024, right at the top, there's a prior period adjustments line where part of that amount is captured. The second factor is sales tax revenue decreases. Actual FY24 as well as projected FY25 and 26 sales tax revenue decreased in the November forecast compared to previous estimates. These changes collectively removed approximately $16.5 million from available resources. This trend fits with the overall 3% decline in state sales taxes in the November forecast. MMB uses information from S&P Global Market Intelligence, or SPGMI, our macroeconomic forecaster, to develop the sales tax revenue forecast. The third factor, investment income increases. Actual FY 24 as well as projected FY 25 and 26 investment income revenue all increased in the November forecast. These changes added approximately $16.4 million in available resources and largely offset the decreases from sales tax revenue. As discussed the last time I joined the council, so in the last March, increased investment earnings are driven by two factors. First, a growing outdoor heritage fund cash balance, and second, historically high interest rates. These factors mean we have a higher principal to invest and are getting a greater return on that investment. Because outdoor heritage fund appropriations can be available for up to 8 or even more years, determining when appropriated funds will actually leave the account presents risks of over or underestimating what the cash balance of the fund will be. For example, the Outdoor Heritage Fund currently has a cash balance of approximately $436 million. $285 million of that is already appropriated and could theoretically leave the account at any time. Historically high interest rates in recent years have made the impacts of this cash balance material and generated actual and projected revenue that is substantially higher than was earned in prior years. And then finally, the fourth factor, or last one I'll discuss, is the decreased reserve amount. Because sales tax revenue decreased in fiscal year 26, the 5% reserve amount required under Minnesota statutes 97A.056 decreased by approximately $500,000, making these funds available to appropriate. In summary, changes in sales tax and interest earning revenue forecasts offset each other, and cancellations contributed to the $8 million increase in the amount available to appropriate compared to end of session estimates. Looking ahead to the February forecast, we will likely see changes up or down in both sales tax and interest earning forecasts, as we will have the benefit of additional months of actual earnings. I'm available for questions, or we are available for questions, and to provide more detail on the Outdoor Heritage Fund November 2024 forecast statement. Thank you for your time.
Great, Ryan. So my question, which I suspect someone else will have picked up on, is you mentioned sales tax receipts down 16 million and investment income up 16 million, but the sheet you gave us doesn't show anything close to that. So please help us understand your math.
Yeah, great question. Thank you. I tried to allude to it right at the beginning of that statement, in mentioning that a lot of the changes that I was discussing with interest earnings and sales tax revenue are occurring in fiscal years before 2026. So when we do the November forecast update, we are updating fiscal year 2024 revenue and expenditures from estimated to actual. So we have changes in fiscal year 24. We are updating fiscal year 25 forecasts for those revenue items. And then we're also updating fiscal year 26 revenue for those items. So you have things moving in multiple years. In the update sheet that, the handout that I provided, that shows what moved in fiscal year 2026, but the fiscal year 24 and 25 changes are showing up in this document under that unobligated carry forward from prior years. So I always get worried about getting super complicated, but like we've got things moving in different fiscal years is the answer.
Okay. Are there any questions? I can't see everybody, so speak up if you have your hand up. Now I've got you all. All right. No questions. Great, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
If it were possible, just a suggestion, to somehow show prior year versus current year adjustments next time, That'd be really helpful, because this is confusing, obviously.
Yeah. Chair Hartwell and council members, that is certainly feedback we can take back. And I'm very interested in being able to provide materials that are clear to the council and help you do your work. And so very open to conversations. Maybe it's something we can work offline of like, hey, what kind of makes sense in
It would
these sort of
Be
updates?
great, because you look at this and you think, here's the change, but the unobligated carry forward is where the big change is, and that our assumption in looking at this is that's turnbacks.
Yeah.
But it's not. So maybe it needs to be 3 items, 24 adjustments, 25 adjustments, and turnbacks or something. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, I think we can take that back and maybe work on something for February.
Because if someone just picks this up without your explanation, they don't understand it.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't. Everyone else does. Thank you.
Good, thanks.
So members, the next agenda item is to actually approve the appropriation with 9 votes and the bill that goes with it that we send to the legislature. Ron and I, with help of staff, put together a 1-page adjusted chair proposal. I'm happy to walk you through that. Essentially, we made these decisions at our October meeting. And what is reflected here is the result of the motion that was passed unanimously by the council in October, with the adjustments recognized under the revised forecast. So the adjustments that we said we would make if there was additional money were 5-fold. The first was we actually needed to budget for our own staff expense, which we did not do in October. There are actually 2 numbers there. One is what would come out of the 25 budget and one that would come out of the 26 budget. But we only need to calculate in our spreadsheet the 25 money, because the 26 would then come out of the next year's budget. So both numbers, the 736 and the 775, are listed, but the 736 is the only number that's in the spreadsheet that was sent around. The second piece was then to fully fund the roving crew, which took 339,000. The third piece was to fully fund CPL, which is 3.6 million. And then increase to every other program proportionately without having staff costs go up. We're talking about 2%. So 2% more to actual project work versus core staff work. And then if there's a big surprise in February, get back together and talk about it. The one thing that is inaccurate on the agenda item 7 handout that you got was there's been a recalculation of the IDP piece that would go into core functions. It's actually 620,000, not 550. It's a $70,000 difference. There were some errors that were found in the IDP calculations. The spreadsheet that you have in the packet is accurate. The memo was done before the spreadsheet was changed. So the only other thing is that restoration evaluations, we had decided to do the minimum required by law. It would go from 161,000 to 168,000 because we have additional money, and that's represented in your spreadsheet. And that's kind of what it is. Senator Lang, I see your hand up.
How can you hear me? How do you
Yeah,
hear
we
me?
can hear you. Oh, yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Sorry.
perfect, perfect. Mr. Chair, thank you. As I've been going through this a few years with the council now, and we go through the November forecast and we balance everything out. Are we statutorily obligated? Obviously, we're going to write a bill that the council has done the work for a year, and we push forward and say, hey, these are the projects we support. Would it be easier? Would it be maybe more prudent and a little a little bit more laminar if we were to write a bill and put zero appropriations in it and say, hey, as a council, we're not going to go through this exercise of futility until we get our February forecast and actually know what the numbers are going to be, because we do this every year where we go through in November and we flog the staff and say, go ahead and put all the numbers together. We as a council need to vote where we're going to increase or decrease any of these spending items. And then February rolls around and we have to redo it all again. I don't think there's a statutory obligation other than having a bill ready that we have to put the dollar values in there. Maybe like a bill with a blank appropriation as we go forward, maybe a smarter way for the council just to say, here's where our intention is. We do have on our own records where we think these dollar values are going to be, plus or minus I think the most we've ever seen is about, I don't know, 6 or 7% increase. Could we do that? Is that maybe an easier way of doing this and, making it easier as a council, easier for staff?
I don't know if we could do it. I think at this point, what we have said is if there is an adjustment in the February forecast that is quite significant, we would come back and revisit. If there isn't, we would just increase or decrease the by an equal percentage for everyone, the amounts to all the projects that are fully funded at this point, I guess. If the forecast is 3 million off, it's easy for the staff to do because the spreadsheet's ready to go. And to get to the bill authors and adjust an amount. We had criticism probably before your time, where there was extra money and the legislature didn't want to take action unless the council actually had a recommendation. And so we got to the point of saying we're going to pre-recommend the changes so that we don't get in a bind where we don't have a meeting and can't provide a recommendation for what to do with the additional money. And so that's why we've done it the way we've done it. I'm not saying there isn't a different way to do it. But that's how we ended up here. Mark?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to Senator Lang's question directly regarding the statutorily obligated, we do have a statute that directs us to have the council's recommendations to leadership by the 15th of January. So that's kind of our deadline we work with each year. Now, if the recommendations were that funds were going to go to specific projects, but the dollar amounts were not specified, I don't know if that would cover our tail or not. That'd be something that Janelle and Ben might want to weigh in on.
Mr. Chair and members, the statute requires the council to make recommendations on the appropriation of money. It's,
So zero money might be problematic.
if that would be your recommendation, then the legislature could run with that. And I don't know if that's something the council would want to leave open to the legislature to decide, but your recommendations are due January 15th and they should be recommendations of money appropriations.
So Senator Lang, it looks like we ought to recommend real money and figure out how to deal with adjustments. But I understand your point because we will in February likely have some change to the forecast. Assuming it's not a big change, our recommendation to just adjust everything by a percentage here and there would carry. But if it's big like it was last year, we didn't want to just sort of go forth without a meeting, and we called a special meeting at that point to do the carp barrier.
Yeah, and I guess maybe when I said blank appropriation, I should have maybe said the appropriation of the dollars that we had available when the project was approved by the council several months ago. Leave it at that value even, and then write the bill, say this is where we're going to practically ignore the November forecast because it really doesn't mean anything to us until, or we have a blanket statement that we fund everything at the percentage that we should. Increase, decrease, everybody, it's feast or famine. And then if we, I know in the past we've had those meetings where us as a council have decided that, hey, this increase, there are, I shouldn't say more deserving, but possibly small, I know I always harken back to Halleck when we did that project. It was, we had a city that was $200,000 short and I didn't know how they were going to come up with that. So us as a council decided we had 10 million extra dollars. We're going to, fully fund this one project, and we discussed it, and that's what we did. So I think that there's maybe a way to do this as far as a bill, and then just say that blanket statement until we have a chance to look at it. And the good thing is that none of this has to happen until, we have that omnibus bill sometime in May. So it just, I think it would streamline a little bit. We wouldn't have to have this discussion, or you wouldn't have to put a proposal together, Mr. Chair, and say, hey, this is the two projects that the DNR is going to get funded that, and I get it. It's a much easier way of doing it, but I just think, we're kind of had this exercise in futility because in 60 days, we're going to have to go back and look at it again. So I guess that's all I really had to say. Thank you.
Okay. I want to recommend we go forward with what we voted on and talk about next year whether or not that's a good strategy versus try to revisit it now. That was what Ron and I came up with, and that would be our recommendation.
No, I'm all for voting on it now. I'm just throwing a little bomb into the group for discussion more than anything.
Great. John is back. I would take a motion to approve the chair's adjusted recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I move the adjusted recommendation by the two chairs, chair and vice chair.
Great. Any discussion? It's consistent with what we already voted on. So, but this is where we need 9 votes. All right, I'll call the roll.
Members starting with number 5 on our list, Edmondson.
Aye.
Edmondson, aye. Eggerling.
Aye.
Eggerling, aye. Senator Herr. Holston.
Aye.
Holston, aye. Senator Lang. Senator Lang.
Aye.
Senator Lang, aye. Saxhog.
Aye.
Saxhog, aye. Swenson.
Yes.
Swenson, aye. Hartwell.
Yes.
Hartwell, aye. Baird.
Aye.
Baird, aye. Burkle.
Urkel, aye.
Burkle, aye. There being 9 ayes and 0 nays.
Motion passes. You have the draft bill in front of you, which is consistent with what we just approved. I think we need a formal motion to approve the draft bill. Is that correct?
Actually, Mr. Chair,
Or did we just do that?
no, yeah, you've approved your recommendations. What I would ask is that you direct staff to move forward with the final drafting of the bill for submission in January. You still have January meeting potentially to make any changes to it. if
Okay.
there are any. Yeah, but if you could direct staff to move forward with the drafting and make any edits as necessary and working with legal staff.
I don't know if we need a motion for that. I'd ask if there's anyone that objects to that, directing staff to get the bill ready. Do you need a formal motion?
I don't believe we do, sir.
Okay. Anyone got a problem with directing staff? All right. We've had no requests for public comment that I'm aware of. No. Mark just asked me if I wanted to talk about core functions, and I'll just say that it is confusing and complex, and we ought to have a discussion about core functions and how we handle it next year before we get to this point. At this point, we've resolved it and it's in the recommendations, but it's quite a challenging process that we've created, and we may want to revisit how we do that. But I don't think this is the time to necessarily do that. You okay with that? Or you would like to talk about core functions?
I would think at least we may want to come back at the January meeting and have it on the discussion agenda then.
Okay. Is that all right with everyone? All right. Well, that's the quickest meeting we've ever had. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Well, congratulations.
You got that. Yeah, you did. Oh my God, what is Senator Lang?
I'll be at 2:00, right?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
Need to get I need to like meditate.
Yes, yeah.